Well. Everybody has been talking crazy about George Pickens. George Pickens goes from being the best wide receiver in the league to all of a sudden he was disinterested, disengaged, and just didn't play well against the Detroit Lions. Well, nobody's giving the Detroit Lions any credit in this. But most of all, people are just wrong about what they're saying about George Pickens. I already did a video about this earlier. But now Steve Smith Sr. comes and he's going to tell the truth about George Pickens. Let's talk Cowboys. We're about to talk facts. Welcome, Cowboy fans and Cowboy haters alike. I'm the G, and I'm the host of Let's Talk Cowboys, where we talk facts. And if you like this video, don't forget at the end to please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know the next time we post another video or go live. If you haven't become a channel member subscriber yet, what are you waiting on? We have a lot more things coming up this season. Now let's talk facts. George Pickens is incredible. And to just let you know how incredible George Pickens has been, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions both made the same decision. They were willing to allow CeeDee Lamb to go one-on-one with their best cornerback and double and triple George Pickens. Because everyone knows that if you don't stop George Pickens, you can't stop nothing on this offense. If you stop George Pickens, at least you have a chance. And the Detroit Lions, they came out with a plan to stop George Pickens. And George Pickens has never been a burner running his routes. He gallops, he glides, and all of these different things. And people have just listened to something that Richard Sherman said, and they ran with it without even looking at the tape for themselves. And even Richard Sherman, what I don't understand is, he was out there watching the game, and he just made a judgment call without even taking into consideration coverages, how George plays or anything, and just puts out there in the atmosphere that he looked disinterested and brought up his contract and all kinds of things. Shameful. And I understand why George Pickens was tripping, because you're messing with this man's livelihood. You don't have to tell us what this man has the potential to be, because we're watching it. We're watching him be the best receiver in the league. But nevertheless, Steve Smith Sr. comes back and says this about George Pickens.
Pickens. I've heard a lot of things that's being said. George Pickens was loafing. He looked disinterested. Now, I respect the guys who have made their statements because I've been in this media game for a little bit. That's my dog, Richard Sherman, from Cali, Compton, California. And then obviously RC. He's doing his thing, and there's their opinion. I would also say they're DBs as well. Now, we all have played corner and wide receiver in high school, and
of course,
and all of that. And Richard Sherman has played receiver. He's played receiver at Stanford, played it in high school as well. But he didn't play wide receiver in the pros, and I didn't play corner in the pros. But I don't think I'm qualified to say that an individual seemed disinterested. So what did I do? I went back and watched the game.
Okay.
Rewatched it. And I just watched George Pickens play. I watched him on run games, very heavily involved, came down, tried to crack the safety several times. There's a lot of people who are taking shots at George Pickens for reasons that the same thing that I've talked about last week. Man, when you're not on the sideline and you don't actually hear what the conversations are going on, man, a video, we say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Can I tell you something? Mm-hmm. A video will make 10,000 words confusing.
Now, I really want us to pay attention to this, because there are people sometimes, they may break down film. But Steve Smith Sr. is talking about a element or an element that those people who break down film don't take into account. What's being said on the sideline when a play is being called? What is the reason why they're calling said play, or what went on before or after that play? He's saying you don't know what's going on. And he's saying is that the film is not the only part of this. I think that's a great point. Because just looking at the film on George Pickens, I think he's just saying something simple. That you can't just say that this man was loafing around based on the film. And I even say this, especially if you don't understand how this guy has played the whole season. George has never been a burner running his routes. George is a galloper and a glider. So it's no surprise how he was running the routes. And I came out on Thursday night and I said this was wrong.
Because you don't know what actually was said to know why that response was appropriate or inappropriate. You're reading body language, and we hear and I've heard all these people talk about body language, but yeah, you have no certificate or any job that says you're a body language expert.
Yeah, I don't even know if it exists.
It does. They have them on like E! News, TMZ, like they have them in the gossip category.
Yeah. Look at those slumped shoulders, Steve. You see the chin that it's down to the side?
Yeah, you see how he's holding, you see how he's not holding her top shoulder. He just has his hand at the middle of her back, but his right pinky is a little bit, all of that. So I went back, look, play 7, deep in the first quarter, 3rd and 10, ball on the 39. And ball was thrown into coverage.
This is one of the plays right here that really had me tripping, because people were acting like Dak put that ball on George Pickens and that George Pickens just didn't want it. Man, when you go back and look at this play, this was a hospital ball. George Pickens was basically playing cornerback. Dak didn't put that ball in the right position or in the right place. He's got a man that's playing him tight coverage and then a man cheated over. This is how they did George Pickens the entire night. I don't know what people want from George Pickens. I guess they wanted him to go in there and get his head rocked or whatever and get knocked out the game. Doesn't make sense.
Heavy coverage. Mm-hmm. And George Pickens goes up for the ball in traffic.
Yeah, that was a bad throw.
If a guy is disinterested, I'm telling you, he's not doing that.
Yeah,
and I go back
throw.
and as soon as CeeDee Lamb gets hurt, which is, it was tough to watch that.
It was. It really was.
Man, I hope that it is not something more severe and it kind of becomes a problem. But there are several plays, but when CeeDee Lamb goes down, you know what I was thinking when I was watching the film, and I wrote it down? I said, everybody's talking about George. I tell you somebody you need to talk about. You need to talk about this offense coordinator who did not make any adjustments.
I made this same comment on Thursday night. How do you come out in this game knowing they have a plan for George Pickens and you don't start communicating with Dak, CD, and George and saying they got a plan for George, so it's time for us to start running some motion. We're going to line both of y'all up on the same side. We're going to move George around. We're going to move both of y'all around. But the one thing we're not going to let them do is we're not just going to let them line up in front of George Pickens and bracket coverage him. This is exactly what the Cowboys have done. And they have fallen in love with this one play, and this is why you have to be careful doing this stuff. That one play is unguardable, but eventually people will figure out how to guard it, and the Detroit Lions did. But you got to also say, let's figure out how we're going to make this even more of a great play. How about we do a sluggo, slant and go? How about we line up Pickens on the outside, CeeDee Lamb in the slot, and then we run the slant off of the go route from the slot, and then let him slant off of that and let him take that safety or that linebacker with him. And if they don't go with CeeDee Lamb, then you got to play where you can say, I'm going over the top now. Dak can read it and just say, I'm going over the top to CeeDee Lamb. Why didn't Brian make adjustments? I said the same thing. Why did he not make adjustments? And when you don't make adjustments, you make George Pickens look bad. Because George Pickens is just going to run the routes that he's supposed to be running, the way that he's been running them. And Dak, because he wants to get the ball to CD, he trusts because he wants to get the ball to George Pickens, he trusts George. He's even going to throw it to him when he's covered. It's a recipe for disaster. Brian should have made better adjustments.
For George Pickens to run different routes. He ran his typical go route, his deep end, his slant, and he was not able to get a different route tree when CeeDee Lamb goes down.
Make it clear.
And the Lions
can he run a different route tree?
He can run a different route tree, but here's the thing. Even if he can't, you still got to give him an opportunity because you can't put him in that box when you're already saying, hey, this is a contract year. We want to see what we have. So give that man an opportunity to run every route on a route tree.
Cowboys got happy with the slant, and Brian is saying we're going to run it and telling teams, joking around, yeah, we're going to run it, without telling them anything that they don't know. Well, how about you show them something they hadn't seen?
Mm-hmm.
Let him, if you really want to allow him to go grab his bag, or get that man that credit card with no limit on it, and see what he does. But you can't sit there in the middle of the football game and just keep running double moves with safety over the top. They had buzzing coverage underneath. They had linebacker buzzing underneath. The corner was playing underneath, saying, hey, I'm not biting on anything. And then the safety over the top. They were bracketing, buzzing to George Pickens once CeeDee Lamb went down, and when they had time to throw the football, they completed some passes to other guys because George was taking up 2 to 3 people every play.
Okay, let me ask you this, Steve.
Yes.
When you say that, because I went back and watched Sherman's response to what George Pickens sent in, made public on it's now deleted on his social media post. And Sherm said this, and I'm kind of curious what your thought is. I get the play calling part. That's great insight. Sherm said, but if you're bracketed and if you're getting this extra attention, you still can't take the play off. Like the best in the game still try to make plays.
But see, I didn't see him take a play off.
Okay.
I did not see him.
He didn't take the play off.
I'm not doing that.
Like you didn't see the George run a route, see the extra attention, see the situation he was in terms of coverage rise and go, well, we're not going to make a play here. You didn't.
Bro,
see
if
that.
you don't throw him the ball and he's in double coverage and he's running a double go, how's that his fault? How is he disengaged? Here's disengaged. If a man doesn't move, if a guy does not run the route, then he's always been a galloper, so it looks like he's not running. That is his play style. You got to go watch film and know what I'm talking about.
I've watched it. I said this Thursday. Steve Smith-Singer had said this before. And when I started watching George Pickens run routes, he doesn't run routes like traditional wide receivers. He just doesn't. And it was on display for the world to see. The Detroit Lions kind of got in there, played him tight coverage, and exploited some of it because they knew they had coverage over the top or over to the side. This is how he's been playing. And for George and then for Sherman to come in and start saying the stuff he was saying, just didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
But to say that he was disinterested, I would say that he was possibly frustrated.
I made that comment too.
I can say I know that for a fact
because Brian made no adjustments.
Every receiver, when you're getting double teamed and your offensive coordinator does nothing to help you get out of this double team.
I made these exact comments the night after the game. Steve Singer just released this today. I haven't played college football, pro football. But this, to me, is common sense. So you're telling me you're not going to be frustrated if they got a plan for you and your OC/head coach won't make any adjustments to say, well, we're going to get them off of you. We're just content to just let them do what they want to do. It's called adjustments. It's called situational football. Brian's got to get better at that.
And triple team, you get a little frustrated.
Hence probably why the social media post was sent. I mean, you don't send that unless you're irritated after the game.
And I have no problem with the response. I don't like him using the foul language and calling him names and degrading him. But I think the response about what he saw and how what he should have said without criticizing him, I agree with George on that. Come back, man, clap back and tell him, bro, you're mistaken here. I had no problem with him telling them that.
For a variety of reasons.
You are irritated, and yes, you're irritated because some of the guys who have been here knows exactly what goes on. And you can't control. I've been frustrated a lot as well. Really? And there has times where I was like, they on this BS today. And you know what I've done? To get my chi back.
Find yourself.
I take myself out of the game, put a towel over my head, and go through my process to get back focused, because I'm no good to my team if I'm just pissed off and not focused and not dialed in.
When you read this social media post by George Pickens, were you thinking to yourself at all, would have completely sent that if this was around when I was in my prime, that I would have been on social media sending this? Would you have done that?
Absolutely, yeah. In today's, you see how I respond to people sometimes on regular, so yeah.
I'm telling you, man, Steve Smith Sr. made a lot of great points, man. A lot of great points. And I'm going to let him make one more point, because it's one thing to criticize a player for one game, which I don't think he even deserved the criticism. But then when you start talking about this man's career, when you start talking about this needs to be examined if you're going to sign him to a big deal, thankfully, I don't think the Cowboys are listening to Sherman. But, man, you're saying stuff that'll follow a player for his whole career. Man, you don't put that stuff out into the atmosphere, man. Some people will take that stuff and run with it. Just like a lot of people in the media took what Sherm said and ran with it out there in the media. And I agree. Bro, come on, man, you can't be saying stuff like that. I don't understand how ex-players get into the media and then they start acting like in some instances they've never played the game. Doesn't make sense to me. Let's get this last comment in from Steve Smith Sr., and then we're going to be done.
Before we got there. I understand being frustrated and taking some shots.
Yeah.
But this isn't a no-name guy making some...
Yeah, but even a guy with a name like myself. Mm-hmm. Man, there's film out there where you got beat. There's film out there where you dropped a pass. There's film out there where you have come up short. There is film to show that you weren't perfect as the way you're explaining it on whatever platform you're on. And I've fallen in that same category, right? When I was on the podcast with Arnold and Surtain just last week on Closed Sundays, and those young bucks schooling the old cat on, hey, AOG, when you say something like this, it hits differently. Mm-hmm. It stings. And I was like, okay, because I was also raised where you heard what you did wrong than you did right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the right way. I'm just willing to put myself out there and say, hey, this is what I mean, or this is what I saw.
I'll tell you one thing. George has heard a lot this year of what he's done right.
He deserves it.
He's
a lot.
Look, I even wrote this. I said I saw George run his normal straight line routes.
There you go.
That's not his fault. He doesn't get to pick the plays. And if you're going to say, well, yes, he does, then why are y'all bitching and complaining about the last play with Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns?
Oh.
No. So you gotta hold coaches accountable the same way you're gonna try to hold these players.
Mm-hmm. And there is some of that in what George wrote. Like, this is a team game.
Yeah, it is. And we haven't heard. I don't care who helped write it. I don't care who has helped him write it, or if he did, or if he wrote help or he didn't. Here's what I like. I like a young man saying, "Hey, the perception of me is this. I want to continue to be my authentic self, but I also want to show people that I have matured." He's not going to be all of a sudden immature and a grown man the next day, right?
Yeah.
But he's balancing trying to be a professional, but also, being a young man and say, "Hey, man, get off my case and don't misrepresent me," because when media are saying that a person is disinterested, a person gave up on the team, that's a negative. That stays with you throughout your career.
Good point. Good point.
And
I'm gonna close right here. I'm gonna put this in the comments about Steve Smith Sr. But let me tell you what these people do when they do stuff like this. They put this in the mind of fans. And when you put this in the mind of fans, it will turn certain fans on players. And then they're criticizing that said player every opportunity that they get. This stuff sullies a fan base if you're not careful, because then they get that label. And you never know who else this affects when you're saying stuff like this. It carries weight. And then you'll hear people, just like some of our local media, when Sherm said this, they start running with these talking points, never watching the film, taking Sherm's word for it. I didn't take his word for it. I saw the game, and I knew what he said wasn't true. I didn't see somebody disinterested. I didn't see somebody who didn't want to play. I saw somebody that the Detroit Lions had a game plan for, and we didn't make any adjustments to say, let's do something different and try to get you into the game and get you open and break this game wide open. I saw somebody saying, well, that's what they're doing, so we're going to live with it and we'll just go to CD and whoever else. It's going to be hard to win games like that. Y'all tell me what you think about what Steve Smith Sr. said about George Pickens. I think he told the truth. And I think he also really said him and Sherman are cool. But I definitely think he set Sherman straight on this. And I hope he doesn't have a response. I'm tired of this noise about George Pickens. I'm ready for George Pickens and this team to come back and have a monster day against the Vikings at home. But again, y'all tell me what you think. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Until the next time, DC4L, God bless. Let's talk Cowboys. We talk facts. Peace.